Blitz, if your performance on stage is half as good as it is in bed, you'll leave them breathless.
Okay, so that's hot, and the first time Stolitz's dirty talk has actually worked.
Want to choke on that red?
Oh, stop it.
Welcome friends and people that have ad blockers to more of me analyzing the dysfunctional relationship between a sexually repressed owl and the booty call he wants to marry. Unfortunately for us, Seeing the Stars wasn't really about Stolitz. Tragic, I know. But even though Blitz and Stolitz aren't talking about the massive rift in their relationship, that doesn't mean that they're not dealing with it. As refusing to acknowledge the problem is exactly the kind of thing these idiots would do, even if I don't completely think that's what's going on. Still ship it though.
My dick is good, but it is not that good, Moxie.
Now, before we go any further, I need to clarify something that a lot of fans either don't know about or have just been misinformed. The missing episode. Season 1 was technically supposed to have one more episode that came after Ozzy's. A part 2, if you will. But according to the show's creator, VizzyPop, they haven't been able to release that episode due to legal reasons. Maybe characters from Hazbin Hotel were going to make a cameo, maybe we were getting Kesha. We just don't know the actual answer. This is also part of the reason why it took so long for us to get to season 2, as they were busy trying to figure out if they could even release this 8th episode, with them ultimately deciding to bite the bullet and start releasing season 2 instead, with this mystery 8th episode being kept on ice till the legal bullshit gets figured out. It's a weird situation, with a lot of people making assumptions about the contents of the episode and how it relates to Stolitz and Blitz, as Ozzy's is listed as part 1, and it ended with the two sobbing as their relationship imploded. Stolitz ended up shunning Blitz, who now believes that he'll never be more than just a plaything for this horny rich owl, not the boyfriend that they both desperately want in their life. But because the episode is labeled part 1, a lot of people have guessed that part 2 was going to be a resolution to their falling out, which would explain why the two were so casual when they met each other in Seeing the Stars, with no mention or even hints that they had this massive fight. Well, I do think that is a good guess. That's not what happened. Part 1 is in fact the true ending of season 1, with part 2, in Vizzy's own words, being a grand visual spectacle. It's not the narrative follow-up people were expecting, even though it is a direct follow-up to the events of Ozzy's. Ozzy's is the true finale. Part 2 was just kind of like a fun wrap-up party, a celebration of them getting season 1 done, which to me makes sense. Season 2 was already written by the time they finished part 1. It would be extremely weird, borderline terrible writing for Blitz and Stolitz to hug it out immediately after they broke up, then start season 2 with a blackout drunk Stolitz singing his heart out, standing up to his wife, looking up at the night sky in tears. It would all just feel super misplaced, as if part 2 really did give us any kind of resolution. It would mean that this sad ending would be meaningless when we know he picks himself up 10 minutes later to go fix the entire mess. It'd feel hollow, as if we kind of already know how it played out. So that leads me to think, just from a writing perspective, that we aren't missing any of the info here. Nothing that happened in part 2 was anything big. We are still waiting on that resolution. And if I had any guesses about what part 2 was going to be about, I think it would have been pertaining to Blitz going to pick up Luna from one of Vortex's hound parties, before getting dragged in himself and all the craziness a furry rager would entail. This would be foreshadowed by the note Luna left for Blitz, with the trailer for season 2 even showing Blitz picking up Luna from a party, and this is the only scene that's fully colored and animated. Every other scene from episodes 1 and 2 were just storyboards. So for this to already be colored and finished, I do think that this must have been from part 2. As when Blitz is picking up Luna, he looks visibly sad. He's probably still reeling from the events of part 1, making this situation the follow-up Vizzy talked about in the perfect setting for grand spectacle. This is just my guess, based on how the episodes are structured and the fact that I don't think the creator is lying. So I don't want to read any copium that Stolitz fixed all their problems in a missing episode that we haven't seen. We've heard it straight from the horse's mouth, and that means Seeing Stars writing is wonky all on its own. PSA over, let's talk about the ship. Now, in my initial review, I mentioned how it's kinda weird how these two went from sobbing themselves to sleep over Blitz rage quitting their date to just being casual. As a man with abandonment issues who wants nothing more than to be loved, Stolitz wanting to love him, but as a man lacks social skills and due to miscommunication that Blitz occasionally plays into, the two of them crash into a wall. Stolitz threw Blitz under the bus, which set off all of Blitz's abandonment issues. Refusing to let himself get more hurt than he already is, he insists that them banging is just a contractual obligation. Blitz wants the book, Stolitz wants the booty. Really though, they both crave a genuine connection, with Stolitz realizing he shit the bed, singing about how he can't lie to himself anymore about it, acknowledging that on some level, he's always known that he's been taking advantage of Blitz, taking the path of least resistance and immediate gratification, with there being hints that Stolitz intends to break the contract between them and give Blitz his own way to get to the human world, free of charge, so that maybe Blitz would have a chance to pick Stolitz willingly. It was a lot, and it looked like we were going to see a massive shift in the status quo of their dynamic, as it's kind of hard to just start hanging out again after realizing how dysfunctional your bond really is. You think things would, bare minimum, be a little awkward as suddenly conversations feel like you're dodging landmines, while also finding the urge to slip back into old patterns. Yeah, we get none of that. Or did we? See, there's a couple ways you can interpret how Stolitz acted in this episode. First being, you could put a gun to Blitz's head and he'd tell you to pull the damn trigger before admitting he has a problem. Blitz has built his whole personality on refusing to acknowledge any of his issues and mocking everyone else. He has had a messed up life, from a dad who never cared about him, actively favoring his best friend, to a failed career as an entertainer. Blitz has spent his whole life being belittled and being made to feel like he was never good enough, in a place that actively encourages people to be jaded assholes. If you're poor in hell, your only options are to let people step all over you or square up. Blitz chose violence. That creates an exhausting loop, as Blitz mentally is always bracing for that next fight. Even if it's just an argument, conflict sadly is where he feels the most comfortable. It's what he knows, it's what's familiar, and even if he wishes he could stop, to be honest with his friends and family, years of living like this have just made it his default. If he can't fight it, he belittles or ignores it, which is very much what he might be doing with Stolitz. Blitz has issues, and he's terrified of intimacy, as letting himself care means he can actually get hurt. This fear is what defines Blitz. It's why he lashes out or just pretends there isn't a problem. So following that massive fight that left him a wreck, realizing how much he cared, and believing Stolitz will throw him under the bus at the slightest inconvenience, yeah, I don't think he would be in a hurry to bring that up again. Even just being pissy about it would just be an invitation to ask him what's going on or what happened. Choosing to avoid the topic entirely and acting like nothing changed is the best way for him to avoid the whole subject. Meanwhile, Stolitz is a terrible communicator with poor impulse control. He's silently put up with Stella's disrespect for years, with it taking the best nut of his life to finally start pushing back.
That was the sound of a fucking divorce!
Turn down for what?
Stolitz had his whole life planned out for him. Being able to act for himself is a bit of a new concept. But just like how Blitz's lifestyle ingrained in him seeking out conflict, for Stolitz, it kind of feels like he spent his whole life avoiding it. We mostly see Stolitz being happy-go-horny, but it's primarily because in most situations, he's in complete control of them. He's usually the biggest threat in the room. Even if he always wanted to start a fight with Stella, his main go-to with dealing with the situation was to drink and hold on to that anger until he started rotting inside, with the happy medication implying Stolitz struggles with depression just from dealing with his sad, controlled life. Even though banging Blitz gave him a new lease on life, Stolitz continued to be an appeaser, avoiding conflict with Stella by making excuses and just dodging the things she chucked at him. Even though he announced a divorce, he still didn't go through with it. He continued to passively make this weird best of the situation when what he needed to do was just end this toxic status quo. And we see it again at Ozzy's. When confronted by Osmodeus about ruining his family to date Blitz, Stolitz just hid his face. He didn't fight back, he didn't argue, he hid. He avoided the conflict. And it took this. It took Blitz yelling at him for him to finally hit rock bottom, and for Stolitz to feel like he has nothing left to lose to finally start fighting back. He's only really arguing with Stella. He has a newfound lack of fucks to give with his wife. His whole personality, though, hasn't radically changed. As for the moment, we still haven't seen Stolitz apply this to the rest of his life. So it tracks that he wouldn't be jumping at the chance to have this conversation with Blitz, especially when his daughter is missing. The situation is super serious, so they don't have time for this. They have to find Octavia. It's their first priority, and their relationship drama should take a backseat. Here's the thing, I am not fully convinced. Don't know if you can guess that by my tone. Everything I just said is a semi-truth, A-grade headcanon material. The seeds are all there. Returning to our default behavior in times of stress is a thing that a lot of people do. It's a thing a lot of dysfunctional relationships do. And it is very in character for both of them. However, the episode itself doesn't do enough to earn it. The episode, it's good, but it also feels like it needed another draft. Like, here's my rationale. I could get behind Stolitz burying their feelings and acting like nothing is wrong, but if that's what they're going for, I'm gonna need some hints of there being trouble. Just a little moment of awkwardness to show them avoiding the thing that they don't want to talk about, then forcing themselves back to their usual antics. What we have instead is them going through their usual shtick, bantering with each other without any noticeable shift or hint that something greater is going on. We can guess that they're pretending nothing is wrong, but without anything in the actual episode to confirm it, we're just guessing. Even if it's educated, nothing in the text or subtext really imply that's what's going on, or make it feel like it's earning that. Like Stolitz doesn't call Blitz Blitzy this entire episode, Blitzy being Stolitz's attempt at a cute nickname that came off as demeaning, with Blitz telling him to stop it more often than not. You would take the lack of a pet name as a possible signal that Stolitz is taking the relationship more seriously, that Stolitz is trying to be more respectful and considerate of Blitz. This is fun, but kind of weak for me, as you can handwave Stolitz not using it because of the situation, his daughter's missing, or call it a wash because he's still calling Blitz darling. Not to mention the sheer amount of lusting that Stolitz is doing, and none of it's respectful. And that brings us in my more controversial takes. I wanna say that Blitz and Stolitz aren't acting weird because they're too busy to find Octavia. I think that's what the writers intended. The situation is stressful, they may be slipping into old habits as a coping mechanism. But the episode honestly does kind of a bad job at keeping that tension and focus to earn that excuse. When Stolitz first finds out that Octavia is gone, he is panicked, besides himself with worry. But then they go to LA, immediately have a magical girl transformation, joke about a phone number, Stolitz gets giddy stealing sunglasses. The sense of worry that we get from Stolitz completely vanishes, with him clapping back against Blitz, not being really extra aggressive to tell us that it's being fueled by worry. It's just a really funny joke that they could have done at any point in their relationship, which besides the M&Ms, the next thing they do is get dragged into an extended inside joke. The lack of tension comes from the fact that we as an audience are shown that Octavia is fine. The situation isn't that serious, but Stolitz doesn't have a sense of urgency. He's having fun with Blitz dressing up, getting aroused by a bodyguard picking him up. It just doesn't track with the concern that he showed before, and none of these scenes afterwards really keep up that sense of panic that we need to buy into him acting differently because his daughter is gone. The tone is so light that when he suddenly is freaking out in the back of the van, it feels jarring. This is a level that Stolitz needs to be at because Octavia is his everything, so it doesn't feel right that he's just going with the flow as Blitz gets dragged into a sitcom. We've seen Stolitz get distracted by Blitz when he's supposed to be with his daughter, but the second he realized the situation was serious, he dropped everything to go to her. He was still a little prissy about Blitz not being his bodyguard, but he also killed a man who dared to get between him and his daughter. So it doesn't feel right that he's kind of going along with these humans, when he could evac them into space, open a portal in the back of the van to leave, or just put up with anything that isn't bringing his daughter back home. I do like this episode, but it is a bit sloppily put together in places, with great ideas that don't fully gel with the situation. I'm not a professional writer, want to be, but if I had to give my best guess about what happened, it feels like the writers may have had a bunch of fun ideas, like Blitz being mistaken for Brandon Rogers, the sitcom, Luna meeting Octavia, but they didn't figure out the best way to weave them all together. Like, you could have Blitz go get on the sitcom, instead of having him dragged away, you can have him walk on the set while they're searching. This would make more sense than a bunch of film grads manhandling two people whose collective body count could make the CIA blush. None of Stolitz's interactions feel like an intentional choice to cover for any emotional damage or prioritizing their daughters. It feels like a bunch of fun moments with characters that I like who had to be dragged away from the plot so that Luna can have her heart-to-heart with Octavia alone. That's my take, at least. I don't feel like it builds a convincing case for any excuse for why they're just so normal with each other. The tone of the episode isn't tense enough for me to believe that these two are on full dad mode. There isn't any hint that these two are burying their feelings. So the whole episode just does come off as a little bit weird that they're not addressing the issue from what has happened. And no, people, this wasn't intended to be placed somewhere else in the season. Octavia was the focus of the second episode in the first season, so this was always going to be here. The weird pretending everything's okay stuff aside, I do think we got a handful of really fun moments between them. When they got locked together in the van, Stolitz is freaking out. He's panicking, and despite the man's lack of consistency, the man is distraught, and it's Blitz that pulls him out of it. Blitz busts the window open, yells at Luna to go find Via, and Stolitz immediately feels better. He's smiling, he's reassured that things are going to be okay. Consistency and flirting with bodyguards aside, Blitz didn't do anything special in this scene. He didn't have any heartfelt speech about how things will work out. But Stolitz trusts Blitz. For all the stuff that's happened between them, despite all the condescension, Stolitz really does think that Blitz is a badass. He has faith in him. So when Blitz says Via is going to be okay, he believes it. And perhaps this is what allows him to relax for the rest of the episode. Then in a case of narrative symmetry that took way too long to click in my head, right after Blitz helps calm Stolitz, Stolitz helps Blitz. Blitz was freaking out about having to perform on a sitcom, which with all the trauma Blitz has from performing, not to mention having a weird pull with celebrities, I can totally see Blitz moving from circus performer to acting, with a failed sitcom being just the kind of fuck up to send him back to the bottom and angrily working for a robot copy of his former best friend. Blitz is properly freaking out. He does not want to do this, he is panicking, and even worse, he doesn't think he can.
Blitz, if your performance on stage is half as good as it is in bed, you'll leave them breathless.
That is such a good line. I'm sorry, that is just perfection. It's great to see them supporting each other, though it's baby steps for Stolitz, who yeah, he is hyping up Blitz, telling him he's got this. But he's also not asking if he's okay or asking why, and he pushes Blitz on set, just kind of ignoring those feelings as he's like, don't worry, you'll be okay, but you have to do this. It's still an improvement of his old behavior where he just kind of bulldozed Blitz into doing what he wants. Then because callbacks never fail, we see Blitz tragically think he's finally found his audience. They're being forced to laugh. You can just tell that this is a dream come true for the man, with him flashing Stolitz a smile as he gets his confidence back and starts feeling comfortable on stage. It's really cute though how out of everyone in the crowd, Stolitz is still the only one who's actually laughing at Blitz's morbid shock humor. They haven't changed since they were kids, and Stolitz is so thirsty he drank acid. By the end of the sitcom though, even Stolitz is over it. Blitz stuck to the standard sitcom jokes, so can't really blame him. But then Blitz freaks out.
And have her. She is mine and I love her.
Now everyone in the room finally gets their awe moment, and we avoid a double suicide. Stolitz, however, immediately realizes that Blitz is having a meltdown, with the dork trying to help Blitz as he gets swarmed by security, but all he ends up doing is killing the director. Well then Blitz kills everybody, and Stolitz gets to finish.
Now let's go find our daughters.
All of Stolitz's fantasy moments are wrapped up in one massive sploosh, like Blitz has abs now, and I love that for him. And that's kind of it in the Stolitz department. They watch the fireworks with their daughters, all the feels, and I'm mostly fine with what we got. I may disagree with some of the excuses, I do mostly feel like this is just a bit of sloppy writing. Again, all I really needed was one moment to convey a bit of awkwardness that they would then hide and I would be all good. But when you put it all together, the rush pacing of scenes, things feeling just too casual, the sitcom feeling like it's just an avoidable distraction. Even if we get great little moments of the two comforting each other, it still doesn't feel fully cohesive, especially with how hard they lean into the two of them being utter wrecks after their date. Like Blitz puts question marks on the counter for when he's supposed to bang Stolitz, so he's not entirely sure where they're at right now. That's only the barest of hints that we get, and there's no interaction between them that really feels like something has changed. I can't wait to see where the Dad Squad goes next, but as much as I like them, I can also admit when something feels off in a relationship even when they're not the focus. Also, I feel like we're overdue for an episode not involving either of them. They're great, but the rest of the cast needs some love too. But in the end, tell me what you all thought in the comments. I'm sure no one will scream at me for being wrong, but hey, everyone's opinion is valid. But if this episode turns out to be a prequel, I might just delete all of this. Thank you all for watching. This has been Sarcastic Chorus. Like, share, subscribe, peace out, and follow me on Twitter. Goodbye.